J6 Lives. What's that?
10 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
I know I am. I just want to get that on.
Bad timing, dude.
You have a question back there? Sure.
In the video that you just showed, there was one guy that has basically as we would say in the Marine Corps, looked like a grenade launcher. And he looks like there's a picture of somebody that looks like him as a cop that fired one of those rounds point blank into the upper femur of one of the J6ers. The guy was utterly stunned. Come to find out later, his femur was broke actually by that. Did you run across that guy, or do you know anything more about that?
I do remember, I knew his name one time. I don't remember what it is now, but I can look that up if that's the guy. Yeah, for sure. Okay, we good? Okay, so let's talk about some of the big lies about that about January 6th. First off, Trump it was said that Trump denied the National Guard. We all know that that's not true now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Well, he was the one who ordered.
Pelosi did
Yeah,
it.
Pelosi did, and Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
Second one, that we knowingly entered the grounds that were restricted. No, President Trump said, go there. The president said we could be there. There were no signs when the majority of us got there, and then there were people that were calling us up.
You're welcome.
That we showed up armed and
Inside
violent.
too.
Absolutely not the case, as you see there, and of course they didn't find any weapons at all. That we colluded and planned with one another. Not true. I went to J6 on my own, as did a lot of people. And the other thing, one of us that got charged, he was actually a school teacher, and in his house, yeah, I'm not sure about
No,
doing
this one's out. 1 second. Let me see which one.
I'm not.
There we go.
In his house. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's good. In his house, when he got raided and arrested, he had a Legos box that was still had the cellophane on it of the U.S. Capitol. They said he had that because that's how he was planning to attack the Capitol. They actually used that against him, and it was in his court documents to be used against him as evidence. That the FBI was not present, was not there. Well, we know now that Chris Wray has at least admitted to I think like 25 or 26 agents being there, which means it was probably 10 times that amount.
Right.
So we'll find out more hopefully. And people let us in. There's doors on the east side. I wasn't on the east side. I was on the west side. But doors on the east side are something like 20-foot tall brass doors, and they're magnetically sealed. There's only one way to get those open.
Right.
Yeah. And the biggest one is insurrection. I'm an insurrectionist. No, I was not charged with nor convicted. In fact, nobody was charged with insurrection, including President Trump. The last talk I was at, they published and made news reports and everything that I was. So I'm now going after them because that's specifically defamation out there. Another lie is that police were killed. Everyone's heard that, right? We killed police that day. Five.
Yeah.
The actual number is zero. Okay, and we're going to talk about those. But the biggest one that you heard about was, of course, Brian Sicknick. So we're going to listen to a little bit about that.
The fifth death that CBS News is referring to is of Capitol Hill police officer Brian Sicknick. You will remember his name. Sicknick's body lay in state at the Capitol after the media told us he'd been beaten to death by Trump voters with a fire extinguisher. Here's what they told you.
Officer Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the hours-long attack. They beat a Capitol police officer to death with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during a fight.
He died at the age of 42 after he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
Once again, that's not true. Everything you just heard was completely fabricated. The DC medical examiner performed an autopsy, and the autopsy report showed that Officer Brian Sicknick had not suffered any kind of blunt force trauma. He was not beaten to death. He died of a stroke in his office later. No one has been charged in Officer Sicknick's death because Officer Sicknick wasn't murdered. They are lying to you. That is provable. Not a single person you just saw has apologized for lying. Not a single one. And it's not just the news media. Here's Congressman Pete Aguilar of California claiming that officers lost their lives on January 6th.
These hearings will be a chance for the country to come together, to rally around the truth and unite around the rule of law. We owe it to the officers who lost their lives and the officers who were injured to tell that story and to ensure that this never happens again.
Let's rally around the truth, he says, as he lies to you. May those words burn your tongue, liar.
Yeah, I mistook her on.
Okay, so, and that was the narrative from day one, and they ran with that, and that's what really turned everyone against us. Oh my gosh, they were there and they killed cops, and that did not happen. Now, they said there were 5 police killed, so he died natural causes. DC medical examiner verifies that. It was the following day, by the way. And then in the preceding 3 months, 3 other Capitol Police officers committed suicide. Now, why did they commit suicide? Who knows? But it's in the line of police work, it's not uncommon. So without conspiracy theories, let's just say that they committed suicide. But what about the 5th one then? That one. On around April 5th, I think, or 6th, a Muslim Islamic extremist drove his car up on the Capitol grounds and ran over a Capitol police officer, and they pinned that on us too. So that was part of January 6th. And that's how they get to the count. That's how they get to the 5 count. Okay? Is that outrageous? Yeah, it happened in April. It might have been May even. It might have been May. I can't remember. It's one of the
It's
two.
aftermath. It's the aftermath.
Yeah, it was 4 months later. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of what happened to me, my arrest day. It happened 232 days after January 6th at 6:15 in the morning, literally about half a mile from here. And at 6:15 in the morning, 25 FBI agents blasted down the door, and if you see the door here, you can see how they blew it out of the frame. It was a glass door, it shattered it. They did $5,000 worth of damage to the door. They knew who I was. They'd already been to my office a week before, had identified me. They knew what I drove, they knew where I lived, they knew my phone, they knew everything. Could have been a phone call, Jeff, hey, come down and talk to us. Didn't happen. What they had to do is they had to put on the show.
Shock and awe.
Shock and awe, yep. And so a couple things that they confiscated. You can see they confiscated my Trump flag. I had created the Big Lie t-shirt. One of the things that didn't show up in my discovery was my Back to Blue trailer hitch. They didn't put that in there. And a couple radios that I used for a different sport. They said, oh, if you have 2-way radios, you were definitely colluding in your instructions. So I get pulled out of my house at 6:15 in the morning, red dots on my chest. I go out, and at that time I was sleeping in a t-shirt and boxers. And that night I was sleeping in my Proud to Be a Deplorables t-shirt, I swear. And so I'm out front, and then the crime scene van pulls up, and then the pop-up tent goes up, and then the booties go on, and then hairnets go on, and the gloves, and the boxes, and walking in and out of the house. All so the morning traffic can see while I'm standing there. And that's how they did it all around the country.
Yes,
what did that do? That put a cooling effect like you won't believe, because if you didn't want to look like me, then you're not going to do what I did.
Fear of God.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's what they did. They put the fear. And during that time, the officers were kind of laughing and yucking it up. And it was Labor Day weekend, so they were talking about what they were going to do. One of them was heading up to Pismo Beach and was going to go motorcycle riding and all that kind of stuff. And I looked up at them and I said, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. And that's the only words I said to them. That was it. Never spoke to them once. But I also heard something else, and that was they were talking about a suicide bomber that had just gone off in Afghanistan. So this is in August. This is when that pullout that Biden coordinated and absolutely boxed, and probably the worst wartime pullout that ever happened, I guess, whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know too much about it. But I heard them talking about it. So they took me down to Santa Ana. I got booked in, and I saw a magistrate later that day, and this judge actually let me out. the prosecutors were on the line from Washington D.C. It was late in the afternoon by the time I was in court here, so court was closed here. And she said, I'm going to let him out. And they said, no, you can't do that. And she said, well, you got anything to file? And he said, we're about to file it. And she says, well, then I'm going to let him out. So she let me out. I had to do a $100,000 bond. I had to have an ankle monitor. I had to have curfew and probation. I agreed to all of it, but they were going to immediately appeal it. And I knew that they were coming after me from early on, late January. I kind of knew. I was always kind of paying attention, and of course occasionally I was telling people, and people thought I was freaking nuts that I was going to get arrested. Jeff, you're not going to get arrested. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. I knew they were coming, but I knew they were going to revoke my bond too. I knew where I was going. I knew I was going to DC. So I learned more about that suicide bomber, and basically that was the Abbey Gate bombing. 13 service members that got killed that day. The very moment my government was spending God knows how much money to track me down across the United States and have all these people bust down my door to arrest me for protesting. What about the money to give them, those kids, what they needed to survive and deal with the situation they were in? So I developed an affinity with them. I knew where I was going, so I thought, well, I'm going to use them as a little bit of inspiration. So what I did is I had all of their names tattooed on my arm.
Awesome.
Right here. When after that judge gave me bond there, I was out for 12 days until my bond got revoked. So this was some real inspiration when it got to dark times inside, and it helped me out a lot. But my bond was revoked, and the government said there was no conditions in which I could be released. But wait a minute, I've been out for 12 days. Everything was fine, no problem. So again, our rights were violated that way. So then the journey began. I spent 17 days of solitary confinement here in Santa Ana. This was during COVID time too, so they had all the COVID protocols that you could imagine going in. The one in Santa Ana in particular was you were in your cell for 60 hours straight, then you got 1 hour out to shower and make any phone calls you wanted to, and then it was back in. Then I ended up spending almost a month there, and I got transferred to a place called Grady, Oklahoma, and in order to do that, they put me in a couple other guys into what I can call, it had to have been an old dog catcher's car, because it was just this metal truck with a back, metal benches. They stuck us inside, and this is in the middle of September, right? So can you imagine how hot it is? It drove us out to March Air Force Base, still in that thing, sat in that thing for like 2 hours, so they finally took us out. I got on Con Air, okay? And Con Air is not the same one that Nicolas Cage went in. But they put us on that. It's a 737. I flew to Oklahoma, and I spent time in Oklahoma there. And then that jail, boy, that was like a dystopic, something from some dystopic movie. It's like you couldn't believe it, but what was going on inside there. I spent time there, again, more solitary confinement for the quarantine. I spent about 3 weeks there, and then I was shipped off to the DC Gulag. And once you get there, you have to go through quarantine again. And that was... There they did, it was I want to say it was like 48 hours in one till you got through it. And then I was moved into the DC Gulag, and at that point I was with other J6ers. So they had cleared out this whole unit in the DC jail specifically for J6. They cleared it out 3 days before January 6th, coincidentally.
Now, they knew it was coming.
Yeah, of course they did. And then we were all in there, and we were locked into our cells individually. And so during the first 6-7 months, it was like 24-1. So you were only out 1 hour of every single day. And of course we didn't get to go out and do yard or anything like that. And that's where the Star Spangled Banner that you heard earlier. So basically that got recorded out on a phone call, and then it was put together with them. But every night at 9 o'clock, Star Spangled Banner, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we did that. It was really, regardless of what was going on, we did it. Even if we were locked in our cells, we did it. And they wouldn't let us have a flag, so someone had to draw a flag on a piece of paper, and that was the flag that we used. And I was eventually removed from the DC Gulag after about 9 months. And I was taken down to medical and then thrown in the hole. And the hole is jail inside a jail. And so now I'm in the jail of the DC Gulag, and you can't imagine a place that you didn't want to be. I mean, here I am, I'm 55, I'm going, wow, how the hell did I end up in this place, right? They wouldn't tell me why I was there. They kept me for a week, and finally they took me out. So the U.S. Marshals came and pulled me out, and took me out in the parking lot, and I'm cuffed and sitting in there exploring. They're talking to me, they're like, hey, do you know anyone who wants to hurt you? And I said, no. They go, do you know anybody who has anything against you? And I said, no. They go, do you know the judge's addresses in town here? And I said, well, I don't know the judge's address. I mean, I know my judge's name. And they said, do you have any access to white powder? And I started putting the 2 and 2 together here, and I'm like, okay, my mailing addresses and white powder sending to judges. Turns out, some other a-hole on the other side of the jail was sending envelopes of white powder with my name on the return address to the judges in town.
Wow.
Now, could you imagine, they knew it wasn't me, but could you imagine if they didn't, what the story would have been there? J-6er in jail for, quote, insurrection is now doing this. I would have got charges that I never would have seen the light of day again. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Wow.
So, fortunately they knew, and they ended up finding out who that was.
That may not have been random.
Was that an inside job then?
No, well, it was another person on the other side of the jail that had somehow gotten our names. We don't know how. They thought they removed me from the jail at that point because they thought it was someone in the mailroom or one of the guards or something like that, and that I might have been at risk. So they took me out of there. I went to Central Virginia, and I spent a bunch of time there, and also in solitary confinement. Then I moved to Rappahannock, and at this point, I had 2 co-defendants who I didn't even know until one of them I was locked up with, and I met him at that time. And another one was actually out. He never got arrested. Or he didn't get confined, I should say. But when I was away, I couldn't access my discovery to prepare for trial. So my lawyer did motion after motion, and finally got a motion to let the judge say, hey, the DC jail is unique in itself because it's the only jail in the pod that we were in that had internet connection. Now, they had to give us internet connection only to one site, evidence.com, so we could look at some of the videos that you saw there. And that's where we saw some of these videos that ultimately we couldn't even end up using. But nonetheless, I couldn't access my discovery. So the judge said, well, I can either send you back to DC, which they couldn't do because of my safety concerns, or send you home. So they sent me home, and I was at home confinement. I couldn't leave the house at all. If I wanted to go anywhere, even to the dentist, I had to get the judge to approve it. I did that for 4 months, and then went to trial in DC during late November of 22. But of the jury pool, a lot of the attorneys had already done surveys. 87% already believed we were guilty insurrectionists. And the DC percentage of Democrats that year was 92.5% voting. The judges denied all our continuance and requests. I requested that it get continued because it was going on during the midterms. I requested a change of venue because it was happening in DC. I requested severance from my co-defendants because I didn't know them. All of them were denied. And the jury selection of my trial too was going on during the public presentation of the J-6th Committee, national television. So imagine, it was crazy, it really was. Okay, so my trial was from November 25th to December 6th, and during the 4 dares, called as the jury selection, there's a pool of 70 people that show up that day, and they whittle it down, to 12 plus 2 alternates. And as that pool gets whittled down, they allow attorneys to be on jury pools in DC. There was a CNN reporter who was also part of the jury pool. They got dismissed. One of them was actually the person who babysit Jamie Raskin's children.
What?
Can you believe that?
Remind us who Jamie Raskin is.
Probably he's the crybaby. Yeah.
Gutfeld makes fun of him for being fat all the time. If you watch Gutfeld.
He's a terrible representative on the Democrat side.
Yeah.
Just completely anti-J6 to the max, basically.
One of the controversial.
He was the one that was on the J6 committee. Supposedly.
He wears a do-rag.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the interest. So as it gets whittled down, and I finally have my 12, and I have the 2 alternates. There's a number that I learned during that time, my time already in prison, and the number is 13.5, and it has significance inside. It means there's 12 juries, 1 judge, and half a chance. Okay, and I knew that I didn't even have half a chance at trial. The guy who ended up being the jury foreman was the one who slept the most front and center. No kidding, absolutely. But the proceedings, I had no eyewitnesses and no victims testify against me. Didn't matter. The video that I was able to use, as I mentioned, was just literally video that was right within my literal almost reach. They wouldn't let me use any of the video that you saw there because it wasn't pertinent to me. They also suppressed that video, so we couldn't release it to even change the narrative. They deliberated 1 hour on 28 charges. I was charged with my 2 co-defendants, so it was three defendants to 1 jury at the same time. So we each had our own lawyer, and so you can imagine how facts from this guy's case would get mixed up with mine, and it just got so convoluted. But nonetheless, they convicted us in 1 hour on 28 charges, and I think that included some of their lunch breaks. And then it was in handcuffs out the back of the door. And so it's very surreal, I have to say, when the jury foreman stands up and you say convicted, 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 and it's actually you. It's not some television show you're watching. And it was handcuffed. I had to take out my belt. I had to give my tie to my girlfriend Kathy, and then I didn't see her again for like 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So then I go back through the system. I get reincarcerated at that point. I go to Alexandria, then to Northern Neck, then back to DC for sentencing, then through Oklahoma City, then to Victorville, and then I finally finished my time up in Lompoc. So I ended up spending 36 months inside. 18 of it was up in Lompoc. And when I was there, I was in solitary. I got thrown in solitary confinement the second day I was there. So I hit the prison yard first. This was my first federal prison. Everything else was jail, because before trial you go to jail. After trial you go to prison, assuming you have a sentence of 1 year or more. So I hit the yard, and it turns out that, especially here in California, the prison yards are very segregated based on race. So I was white. I run with the white guys, and so I have to cell up with a white guy, because we have cells in Lompoc, and they're very small. They're 6 foot by 11, and 2 dudes living in. Lompoc was open when Alcatraz was closed. Its nickname is the New Rock, so that's how old this place is. So you can imagine the cells were originally meant for 1 person, but they put 2 in them now. So I was celled up with what turned out to be a choma, which is what's called a child molester inside. Okay, so if I were to get in the cell with him, then I would be labeled a child molester, and I would do my time like a child molester, which means the only time they get out of their cell is to go to the shower, to use the phone at a certain time, and then they can go to the library. And there's like, no way that's not gonna happen. So I had to get in a fight with them, and as a result, they threw me in the shoe for that. And I ended up losing visitation, telephone, commissary, and there's one other thing, I can't remember the 4th thing. But anyway, for 4 months. And so I was in the shoe, and my girlfriend had no idea why I was in there, because I couldn't talk about it on the phone. I couldn't write letters about it. And then I had to go through that whole process in there. But then after that, I was out on the yard, and I had some cred at that point. I had some yard cred.
Wow.
And so again, 36 months inside, 4 months house arrest, and then 20 days in the halfway house, which was up in Garden Grove, when I got that pardon on January 20th of this year. I think today is 196 days or something like that. So it's been pretty cool. During that time, when I was in the DC jail, I got to see Marjorie Taylor Greene. She came in and visited us, and so did Louis Gohmert, which is pretty cool. In fact, Marjorie Taylor Greene took that photograph right there. I'm like a couple rows back. This is when we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance. She had to sneak her phone in and kind of take a picture sideways. She wrote a report that as a result of that report, the conditions that were in the DC jail, they lost their federal contract, so they moved all the federal inmates out of the DC jail except for us. We all say it.
Of course. Yeah.
That is me. When I told you the marshals pulled me out and asked me if I was sending letters, in the DC jail, they would not let us get haircuts. They would not let us use nail clippers. They would not let us have video visits, and they would not let us have in-person visits. They wanted us to look like terrorists during that time. Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy. Okay, so 2-tier justice system completely. Lack of process, whether it was bonds, motions, or evidence. We had different hygiene, different visits, different mail, different food. We were physically abused and emotionally by the guards. Some of the people on the administrative staff of the DC jail had active Twitter pages that talked about F Trump, F the J6ers, I hope they all rot in here, all that kind of stuff. Nothing ever happened to any of them. All of our civil rights were violated, 1 through 4, 5, 6, 8. So a lot of people say, well, hey, is there any legal action that you're doing? And yes, it's moving very slow. Again, you'd be amazed. I don't know how many lawyers are in this country, but very, very few, if any, want to stand up and do anything to help us out. So it's really tough. What about this two-tier?
Yeah.
Well, look what they did to fight for that pig, right?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Domestic violence, human trafficker.
Yeah.
And I think I heard he's out and he's back. He's back and he's out. And this guy here, this guy killed those 2 young kids when he was drunk driving. He did just as much time inside as I did. Okay, so if January 6th really was what they say it was, why was all the video classified and you've only seen just a couple minutes of the thousands of hours? If it was what they say it was, why was the January 6th committee formed illegally? It didn't follow the House rules when they formed it. Okay, McCarthy was supposed to pick the 2 on the as the Republicans. Pelosi wouldn't have it. She's the one that picked them.
The select committee.
Yeah. If it was what they said it was, why didn't they have one incarcerated January 6th or testify? Not one of us were given any type of debrief or anything about it.
didn't see anything on TV.
No, of course not. If it was what they say it was, why was Trump always intentionally misquoted? And they always remove the part where he said peacefully and patriotically, right? But the most important thing, if January 6th really was what they say it was, why did Biden pardon the entire committee on his way out the door?
Exactly. Because they're guilty of
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of chaos, but it was the protesters that got killed. And when I left the Capitol grounds that day, and I was talking with other guys who were leaving, we were like, hey, at least we didn't let them beat us. We showed up there because the election was stolen. They tried to attack us and tried to knock us down, but we stood our ground and we let them know, hey, we know what's going on inside that building. We know you're stealing our country right now. And that's what it was. I hadn't even heard the word insurrection until I got back to the hotel, turned on the TV and called my girlfriend. She's like, what happened? And I'm like, well, what do you mean what happened? I mean, it got a little, pepper spray back and forth, and it was push and shove rugby scrum, but that's about it. And then the narrative, they started throwing out that we killed that cop, and it was total insurrection, and they just rolled the ball, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, even to today.
What time did you left the grounds?
What do I think is going to happen with the J6? I don't know. I've heard something, even recently, they're thinking about forming a new committee. Maybe they'll do that, I hope so. We have Kash Patel in there now, and so we've been watching that happen for about 7 months, and Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi, and all of them. I don't know. I honestly don't know if there's going to be accountability. I truly don't. The thing is like when they arrested me, they gave me one charge, and then during time, they superseded my indictment. They gave me more charges and more charges. Why aren't they doing with any of these people? There's one charge that they could get most of these people on, and they could arrest them and charge them, and then worry about the investigations as they're ongoing.
Right.
But they're not doing that, so that concerns me. And the way that they're talking about, we're opening this investigation, opening that investigation. Normally they do the investigations and you hear about it at the perp walk. That's what I want to see. So realistically, I'm gonna give it till the end of the year to say, okay, you know what? Maybe they are doing something that I'm not aware of, blah, blah, blah. But if this year we don't see some perp walks, they're not gonna happen. They just aren't. And why? I can't explain it, other than the deep state's still in control. You know that, right?
Right.
Look how they're subverting Trump everywhere. And then finding out anything more about the pipe bombs, okay? That's the big setup. That was the big setup there. This was a couple of weeks old. All right, so what do we got to do? What do we got to hear? You guys are doing part of it, and it's staying active and showing up to things like this and going to help people go into office and fight for office. That's what we got to do. But the biggest thing we got to do is we got to figure out what to do about the vote. You guys know about Carl DeMaio's voter ID thing. Okay, that's an important thing. They're going to be sending out those petitions pretty soon. I think they got like 5 months to get 1.2 million signatures. They only need like 900, but they have to get more. You know why they have to get more?
Because they are thrown
Because
out.
they're all verified.
Yeah.
They don't verify ballots. They don't verify anything else. But when it comes to petitions that are going to take away their power, they're going to make damn sure
That's
they
right.
verify every single
Yep.
signature.
Yep.
So anyway, so look for that coming out. Make sure you get a copy of that and make sure you follow the rules to fill it out. If you haven't, make sure it's someone in the same county that signs a petition. You can't have someone from another county sign an Orange County petition, otherwise it throws it all out. So pay attention to the rules. If everyone gets 5 and you pass that along, they say that 70% of California wants it. So in order for them to steal that petition or that initiative, they're gonna have to do a lot of thievery. I mean, we know that they're still doing it because Larry Elder should be our governor right now, and he's not. And good thing we know now too, Kamala's not in the running. So we got to get back to voter ID, one-day voting, in-person, paper ballots, small precincts instead of these big county votes. Now, the VCA is what set all that up, and it sounds like such a wonderful name, the Voters' Choice Act. How could there be anything wrong with it? Remember when they remember the gas tax about 5-6 years ago, how they changed the name at the last moment to something that people had no idea what it was, and it made it sound like, well, if you vote for it, then you're saying you don't want it? That's what they do with this stuff. Again, whatever they say we're doing, they're doing. But it was optional, but most of the counties opted in, some of them didn't, and then the ones that didn't, they were wrapped up in AB 37, which said, well, too bad, it's mandatory. Do you know that every single county in California does not have control of their voter rolls? Everything is done in Sacramento.
Yep.
They have to log in to see what's going on.
Sure.
So, and I've heard stories where they log in, they say, okay, remove these people, they get removed, and then they check a couple months later, and guess what, they're
They're
back.
back. Yep.
Or we could just go with Carville and say proof of citizenship is it's unnecessary. Who needs it? Okay, as this is a good app. You guys know about this app? Bill Blaster?
No.
Okay, this is a good app, and what it does, it gives you all the names and phone numbers and email addresses to all the representatives. So when you need to contact someone, rather than trying to look it up or remember who you heard something on the radio, you can't write it down, go to that and you'll find their information there, so you can use that as a good contact point. Okay? Bill Blaster. All right, that's basically it. I'm going to be out here working mostly on voter advocacy type stuff. And any support that you can give is great. I'm going to be out there MAGAing on your behalf, and I appreciate you coming out. And what we'll do is we'll kind of do any questions if we have time for questions, and if there are any.
Thank you, first of all. Thank you. Jeff, what did they come up with to say what you did in this area that you were at? What did they make
So they had a video. I had a can of pepper spray in my hand, but they're claiming that I sprayed it in the officer's face. They have no video of that, but because they had a picture of me with it in my hand, that was it. There were bags of pepper spray that were dropped all over the Capitol grounds, and where did those come from? Who knows? We'll find out. Someone in the FBI
Same
put
place
them
the
there.
pallets of bricks came from.
Exactly. Yep.
Is that where you got it from?
No, one of my the reason I had a co-defendant is because he handed it to me, and then that made us co-defendants. Yeah.
So that happened after you started seeing all the smoke and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when
I was right up front, right in the tunnel.
It might have been the day of or something, but I turned on the television when it was just, the news was just getting out. And the first thing I saw was this bus full of these people in black, caps and backpacks, and not dressed at all like what I would think a Trump supporter would dress
Yes.
like. Yeah, so did you see that
I didn't see any
happening
of
too?
that. When I went there, I was a little bit naive, thinking that, okay, we are going to be looking for Antifa. But it wasn't Antifa that we needed to be looking for. We needed to be looking for false flag people, which are dressed like us. And that's what I wasn't looking for. And those are the ones that cause all the agitation. Because if someone who looked like Antifa was calling me up on the Capitol grounds and saying all those things that they were saying, I would have thought, there's something wrong with that. But it was a person who looked like it should have been. And that's the problem. Yep.
When things started kicking off, what was going through your brain? Like was your first thought like, I gotta get out of here?
No, it wasn't,
or
because
I gotta push forward.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get up to the very front to see what was going on. It's just kind of like in my nature to get involved and stuff like that. And like I say, we had seen everything that happened in the Summer of Love where things were burning down and it was chaos and everything. None of that was happening. There was a little smoke here and a blast here and tear gas. I got tear gas for the first time. And you know what's funny is I eat spicy foods, and I a lot of times will touch my eyes after I eat spicy food, so I'm used to my eyes burning, so my eyes were burning. I'm like, oh, I know this will pass. And I just kind of stayed calm, and it just kind of all went away. Yeah.
So how did it turn into everybody in the Capitol? What, do you know anything about, like now we're, you know, the pictures we're seeing are.
Yeah, so inside the Capitol, they claim, they all the files are still very difficult to find. But they're saying, oh, well, they can't release those files because it's security. Well, the Capitol's a public building. Those videos are everywhere. So people were actually walking peacefully between Velvet Road. Jacob Chansley, the guy that's known as a shaman, he was escorted by Capitol Police into all the areas. And there was photographers there. They were asking him to do things and getting him posed in certain places. He was actually praying in certain places. He's walking. There's video that shows him walking out of the Senate chambers, saying, "Thank you very much. Appreciate you letting us come in here. Thank you very much. God bless you." Blah blah. Walking out.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So you didn't even go inside?
No, I was not inside the Capitol. I was only on the outside.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.
This video has been edited by iMovieLORD. Lamb Tran.